we've got a couple people in here with us, and in an effort to be respectful of everybody's time, because I know we almost feel like you have more to do during this pandemic sometimes than you ever did before. You're being pulled in a million different directions. Thank you for coming to this session today. Just a couple of quick announcements to make sure. We want to thank all of our virtual vendors. We could not have had this conference without them. We have one here with us right now, so make sure that you're visiting with them during the exclusive virtual time. There will be time during each of the events to do that. We would not be having this conference series without them. So the exclusive time is over for today, but throughout the rest of the conference series, we will be having an exclusive time for each of those times. And I will go ahead and intro our speakers that we have with us today. We have Meredith Godby, Head of Inside Sales for Adam Matthew Digital. Meredith has represented the Adam Matthew team for 6 years and worked with libraries across North America to grow their primary source collections. Her passion is working with the academic community, building and maintaining relationships, and raising awareness for valuable academic resources. We also have Jessica Kowalski, Product Sales Manager from Cortex. Jessica comes to Cortex with an MSLIS with a concentration in archives. Jessica joined the Cortex team in September of 2019. Her favorite part of working for Cortex is getting to work with all types of repositories across North America and learn about their unique collections and research. So I'll go ahead, I'm gonna mute myself and we'll take any questions that people might have at the end.
Thanks, Megan. And thank you for having us here today. We're really excited to share with you some ways you can provide access to primary source materials at a time when your patrons may not be able to access your library or archives. And as Megan shared, my name is Jessica Kowalski. I'm the Product Sales Manager for Cortex, and I'm joined here by my colleague Meredith.
Hi everyone, I'm Meredith, and thanks so much for joining today.
And so today, we, in discussing what we wanted to present to you today, we landed upon this quote from Christopher Cox at Clemson University, published in Inside Higher Ed. And Christopher shares how archives and special collections are the greatest assets of a library. Particularly in today's environment, however, there's challenges in accessing those resources. There's increased pressure on digitized resources as patrons may not be able to come into reading rooms, perhaps due to social distancing measures. Perhaps staff are working remotely and you're having issues performing reference duties. Or that patrons may not want to leave their homes for a variety of reasons. However, preservation of archival materials takes a lot of time, and if you're doing all that work and effort, what's the point of preserving it if nobody can access those collections? And so today that leads us into what we'll be discussing. So first will be, Meredith will share who is Adam Matthew. What kind of resources do we have that can provide unique research and learning opportunities for your library? What is Cortex, and how can you use this technology to provide unique access and learning opportunities for your own digital collections? And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Meredith, who will speak to us a bit about Adam Matthew.
Great, thanks, Jessica. So this year is an exciting year for us as we're celebrating 30 years of creating award-winning digital products. It's our passion at Adam Matthew to provide unique access to collections from leading archives and libraries around the world, and we enhance our content through the innovative use of technology inspired by the unique nature of the material that we're working with. So it's interesting just to take a top level look at these numbers. Since we started as a microfilm publisher about 30 years to present day, having over 130 primary source collections spanning the humanities, social sciences, and beyond. Go ahead and flip next, Jessica. We're proud to work with many of the world's leading libraries, archives, and research institutions to make their materials available online to the scholarly community. We do believe that we have excellent relationships with our partners, and that our partners choose to work with us because we're passionate about history, see the significance of the documents that we're digitizing, and we also create outstanding resources with easy to use interfaces and contextual tools. Go ahead and flip next. So today I wanted just to showcase 3 of our frontlist publications, the first being our Children's Literature and Culture collection. And this is really a beautiful, highly visual resource that makes available over 8,000 documents from the American Antiquarian Society and the Winter Thurr Library. And these documents were written for and occasionally by children. It spans from the early 1800s to the 1920s, and this was really a time period that children's books were being produced on a huge industrial scale. The next we're going to look at is food and drink in history. And this is a collection, and several of our collections are published over a series of a couple years or even 5 years. It really depends on the size of the collection, and this one was very large in scale, so we split the publication over 2 years to produce 2 separate modules. And last week, our second and final module of food and drink in history published. And this is really a unique collection for us. It's our first time looking at food and drink specifically, but we feel that the story of food and drink is a unique lens through which to view social and cultural history. The materials in this collection illustrates the deep links between food and identity, politics, power, gender, race, and socioeconomic status. We can also take a look at key issues such as agriculture, nutrition, and food production. And lastly, the food and drink collection offers us a variety of primary source material. It offers cookbooks and government reports, films, and also illustrated content. And then the third collection I wanted to look at today was the Mass Observation Project. Previously, we have published Mass Observation Online, and this is titled Mass Observation Project. And the difference is that previously, Mass Observation published everything through 1967. And this really became one of our flagship collections at Adam Matthew and is well used by researchers all over the world. And many have incorporated it as an essential part of their curriculum. So they refounded in the 1980s, and that's how we created the Mass Observation Project. And really, this is coming back to digitize those surveys that were published between 1981 and 2009 to really take a look at those key events in the 20th century into the 21st century. And those are events like 9/11 and Princess Diana's death, elections, and so much more. We're the first publisher to utilize artificial intelligence to offer handwritten text recognition, something that we call HTR, for handwritten manuscript collections. And Mass Observation is a very unique collection for us in that it's our first collection that will be on our Cortex platform, and we'll talk a bit more about that later, but it also features our HTR capability as well. And you can see it in this document that I've shown on the screen, where we've searched the term kitchen, and we were able to easily find this. And basically, it enables relevant handwritten text to be identified at the document level with automated searches deployed through the metadata. So like I mentioned, Mass Observation will be our first title published on our new digital collection platform, Cortex. And over the next year, the next few years, we plan to migrate our entire portfolio over to the Cortex platform in an effort to optimize searchability across all our resources. Next, I kind of wanted to look at a new way to search, in that we introduced our new AM Explorer platform in 2019. And this offers a universal entry point to our cross-searchable collections. And you can see it in this bottom right-hand corner that it looks a bit like a Google landing page, and to offer this unique access point to give us the capability to cross-search over a variety of collections. With this platform, we also introduced a new annual access model called the AM Explorer to provide 1 year of unlimited access to our complete portfolio. And again, content spans over 5 centuries, so this really meets the interdisciplinary needs and demands of a wide range of research agendas. And with virtual instruction and remote research at its peak due to COVID, this provides a primary access point to search hundreds of thousands of primary source documents at one time. Lastly, I just wanted to take a moment to highlight that we have a dedicated outreach team that we provide these services with access to each one of our collections. And this is not an exhaustive list of the offerings that we have available. I do believe that we are a small and flexible team, and we really partner together with our institutions to come up with creative ways to support them. And now I'm handing it over to Jessica to share a bit more about Cortex.
Thank you, Meredith. So Meredith briefly mentioned Cortex a few times during her presentation. So she did mention that this is our 30th anniversary for Adam Matthew Digital. We started off taking microfilm and creating those into collections. And for about the past 2 decades, we have been producing digitized databases, such as Mass Observation or Food and Wine and History, as online databases. And all of that technology has always been built in-house by the Cortex team. So Cortex is just the latest instance of that technology. However, it's the first time that we're offering our technology for use by individual libraries and repositories. So Cortex is a fully hosted cloud-based solution. It's a digital asset management system. And we'll talk a little bit about how it's also a content management system. But there's no coding necessary needed in order to implement Cortex. Actually, part of the reasoning behind Cortex was that we would have our editorial teams, they might work for 5+ years on a particular collection, digitizing it and getting it ready to be created into a database, and then they'd need to hand it off to a technical team. We've created Cortex so they no longer have to do that, that our editorial team, most of them are have history and humanities backgrounds and not necessarily technical backgrounds. They can create their own databases themselves without needing additional help. Cortex features a variety of full text search. So Meredith mentioned HDR. We also have OCR that most of you are probably familiar with, as well as AV transcription. And we'll talk a bit more about those in a moment. And Cortex also allows you to build digital exhibits in the platform and soon timelines. We'll take a look at that. So Cortex is unique in that it has 2 main capabilities. We have the backend portion. We have 2 portions, one called My Assets, and that's the DAM, the Data Asset Management System. That's where you store your assets, you build your catalog, import your controlled vocabularies, and you build your collections. The My Sites portion is the content management system, and that's where you're doing your website design. You're doing, perhaps you're building digital exhibits, and you're building your customer research experience. And so with Cortex, when you have an asset, you can publish that asset out multiple times across the site. So you can publish out a single asset to multiple collections, to multiple exhibits, to multiple pages within Cortex, while only having to manage one instance of that asset. So for example, if you needed to update a copyright statement, you don't need to remember every place in which you are hosting that asset. You just go back and you can edit the copyright statement once, and it's done everywhere. You can also do that process in batches for groups of assets as well, or collections. So in full text search, Meredith mentioned our HTR. Again, we have OCR, so that's for newspapers, pamphlets, books, our AV transcription, or I think oral histories, records, tapes, video clips, and handwritten text recognition, which is for handwritten documents, manuscripts, letters. In many databases today, full text search is available on just OCR. And so we're going to take a look at what our OCR does, what our AV does, and what our HDR does. And for the sake of ease, and rather than having to go in and out and in and out, I'm going to just show you some screenshots of what the Cortex system looks like and how our full text search works. If you visit cortexcollections.com, you can click on the link that will bring you to our demo site, which is where I ran these searches. Or there's also a URL here to our demo site. We're always happy to schedule live demos and dig around to the system with you. So if you want more information, just let us know. So with that, we're going to take a look at what we're showing here. And so in this upper image here, we're seeing that I performed a search for marshmallow, but I'm searching on just the metadata. And by searching on just the metadata, I'm showing 0 results. Now here in the second image, we're seeing that I performed a search for marshmallow. I'm searching for the metadata and the full text, and I'm getting 4 results. And this is because this content has been OCR'd or AV transcription. And so we'll take a look at what that asset is in a moment, what it looks like inside an asset. But the thinking here is that by using processes like OCR and AV transcription, you can get through your backlogs, make content discoverable, and you can always go back and make complete catalog records. So with that, we're looking at an asset in Cortex. We can see here that these are our document details. You can customize what this says for you. This is the complete metadata record. And we're seeing that marshmallow does not show up in this metadata record. However, we do see that our search term is highlighted. And we also see that our search term is highlighted here in this transcript. This is a summary metadata tab that has about, I think it only has these 3 items here, but this is the full transcript. So as we were to scroll through the pages, this transcript would correspond to the page that we're looking at. So as you can see, we don't have a very robust metadata record, but we're still able to find our search term using HDR. Now, AV transcription is another service we provide. Here, I performed a search for Kwantong. And sorry, apologies if I mispronounced that term, but it's the Japanese Imperial Army from the early 20th century. And I searched one of our AV assets, and we can see here again that our metadata, this is our metadata record, and we don't see the instance of our search term in the metadata, but we do see it in our transcript. So you could go down and scroll, and oops, and as you scrolled, you actually scrolled, you would be able to see where your search term is highlighted. You may also see here that the transcript has a timestamp, and we also have the closed captioning. That transcript with the timestamp and the closed captioning is done in a single process. So we'll see how you do that on the back end in just a moment. I also want to point out that you have the ability to download, so you can choose whether your researchers can download just the metadata, the transcript, and or the asset itself. And then you also have the ability here to bookmark your document. We'll see how you can do that in a print image in a moment. And we'll talk about My Accounts, which is where you can see all your bookmarks. So from here, we do want to speak a little bit about handwritten text recognition. This example here is not on the demo site. It is on McGill University's site. They're using Cortex for a project-based approach, specifically for HTR, and they're testing it out on a set of manuscript collections. The first one that they have applied it to is their Doncaster recipes. And I'm not sure about you, but since the end of March, we have baked an insane amount of bread in my household. And as naturally, a recipe book, I'm going to search for bread. And so we can see here that our search term bread is highlighted in our asset, similar to kitchen, the example that Meredith showed earlier. Now we can see the difference between HTR and OCR. We don't have a transcript tab. We do see that this is the summary metadata we mentioned before, and that's our search term bread appearing right here. We can see here in the second image that these are a list of all of our hits for the term bread. We can actually see bread here. So bread appears on 10 images, so 10 pages has the instance of the term bread. We can also use the hits turner. We would be able to jump to the next page with the instance of our search term, or we could just browse through the pages individually here. Now it's worth mentioning our HTR will include a full text transcript come 2021. So that means that HTR will look and perform very much the same way in which OCR does. We've been hosting some third-party assessments on how effective and how accurate that is. And right now it's coming out to be about 92 to 94%, depending on the quality of the handwriting. So we're really, really excited about that. And we're really excited to release that early next year for you all. So how do you run, this incredible HTR or OCR or AV transcription in Cortex? It's really just with the click of a button. So this is just a screenshot of the back end. You could choose a single asset and choose to run OCR, HTR, and or AV transcription. And you may choose to run different services in a single asset. So we have a customer, Baylor University, for example, that has albums. So they have the cover of the album, they have the artwork, they have the different sides of tracks. So perhaps you want to run AV on transcribe AV on the audio tracks, but perhaps you want to run the OCR on the front of the albums or any notes or other materials that are included with it. In Cortex, full text search is a service that's applied to an asset to a backend, and so it's fully indexed. And so when you're searching against an item that's been indexed against the asset. It's not in a metadata field, as we've seen, which means, again, that there are no limitations on the character lengths. And this can become really important for really lengthy documents. Censuses or newspapers, for example, are things that may have a lot of characters, and there's no limits on the OCR for that. Now, I mentioned a few other services that you are included with Cortex. So we include the ability to create digital exhibits. What you're seeing here are examples from our exhibit Doodles of World War II Prisoners. So here is an image of one of their doodles. And we also have an oral history from Harold Knoll. That's from Revere, Massachusetts. So we have our New England ties here. And we can also see that the closed captioning is available in our digital exhibits as well. We can see that there's some buttons here. We could go full screen and just watch the video with the closed captioning. We can get more information if you hover. We have alt text for accessibility. And you can also link out to related pages. So whether that's the asset record or whether you're hosting in our digital exhibits, you don't need to host just content that you have on Cortex that are assets. You could host images from anywhere on the web and link out to anywhere on the web. We also have A to Z list available for you. It's a great way to organize information. Loyola Marymount is using the A to Z list in order to organize their collections list. And each of their collections actually hyperlink out to a collection page. We also have it here for biographies, and you could organize any information alphabetically as you choose. Now, I alluded earlier to my accounts. I just wanted to speak to that a little bit further. So Meredith mentioned that Adam Matthew Digital is migrating all of their collections to the Cortex platform over the course of the next few years. Using my accounts, individuals can save individual pages or entire documents. They can save searches all in one spot. There's no cost to you, and these accounts are managed by Cortex. But the cool thing about the My Accounts feature is that they'll be able to save from any Cortex database. So we can see here, this is my account, my account, and we can see I've saved assets from the Mass Observation Project that Meredith mentioned. I've also saved assets from McGill. These are some assets from the Cortex demo site. I could also save assets from Baylor, Loyola, Marymount, for example, all in one spot. Now, what's next? As I mentioned, we will also be hosting timelines early next year. We have been working with the University of Toronto, Mississauga. They have been using Cortex now. They started off as a beta partner in early 2018. And they had a faculty member that needed to publish some research where trying to find a creative way to do it, went to the library because he's smart and said, hey, can you help me with this? And they said, actually, yes, we have Cortex and they have this whole content management system. We can publish web pages and we can publish your research. And his research here is called Visualize the Americas. I'm particularly interested, I'm from East Boston, and and his project is actually on the Chelsea food market. So I've driven by there a ton of times. I'm not sure if anyone else has. And so it's been really fun to go in and to learn a bit more about this market that's near my neighborhood. So this timeline feature will be available to all Cortex customers in 2021, as well as these design options as well with like the really bold headings. You'll be able to link out to assets in Cortex, similar to the digital exhibits or elsewhere on the web. And so I mentioned a few customers that we have that have live sites. So I encourage you to check out our demo site and to look at our customer sites. So Loyola Marymount University has a live site, Baylor University, McGill, Sonoma County Public Library, University of Toronto, Mississauga, the Royal Agricultural Society of New South Wales. And we actually have a new customer just of this morning, Bay Area TV Archive based in San Francisco, has just signed on, and they'll be hosting AV materials on the Cortex platform. So we're really thrilled to have them. So keep on keeping your eye out. We have new sites and new customers launching all the time. And with that, I just want to share some information for our upcoming webinars. We have one with Sonoma County Public Library on serving and engaging communities through enhanced access to digital collections. Sonoma County Public Library used to be on Content DM, and they have migrated to Cortex. And so they'll be speaking about the ways in which they've been able to enhance their website using Cortex. Meredith also mentioned our Children's Lit new database with the American Antiquarian Society, and we'll be hosting a webinar with them on the changing face of children's literature. And with that, that is the end of our presentation, and we're happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you both of you very much. Does anyone have a questions? Feel free, you can unmute yourself if you want to. We have a small group here. If you want to put them in the chat, I can read them out loud, or Jessica or Meredith can read them. Looks like probably no questions.
We can always ask questions. And how many public libraries are you doing?
Yeah, so Cortex, we currently have, so Sonoma County Public Library just launched their site. We have Des Plaines Public Library, which is just outside of Chicago. And we also are working with Public Library in Southern California, we're working on their license right now. They have a partner that already signed on, so there'll be another public library. And then Harris County Public Library, based out of Houston, Texas. They're my customer, so I'm most familiar with their project. What they're doing is so cool. They are having a centennial celebration. And so they are, we are building out for them a map with an integrated timeline that spans 100 years. So when you look through their timeline, you can see where all their locations are. And they've come across a whole list of locations they didn't know existed from the Jim Crow era that were segregated. And so we're creating this really cool map that you can see how much their library has grown and the history, the darker parts and the brighter parts of it. And they're going to have digital exhibits that link out onto their main locations. But they have some locations that were out of like a back of a pickup truck that they go and drive to. So they're going to have a really, really robust site. They're going to have also an additional site for their county archives. So their county archives are currently hosted on Content DM. They're going to migrate all of that content to Cortex. So the library is going to have their main site in launch of their 100th anniversary celebration, and the county archives is going to migrate their content as well.
This is New England Library Association, and I'm in Vermont.
Mm-hmm.
We have quite a few historical societies and quite a bit of trying to build groups across libraries, between libraries. I don't know if you've worked with groups like that before.
So we are starting to. On Cortex, we have the ability in the back end to set various administrative rights. And so the public library that we're working with in California is partnered with a larger institution. And so they are kind of working together to group together in order to maximize their purchasing power. And so we would be very happy if there was a group of public libraries that were interested in joining for a similar kind of path, we would happy to have that conversation and hear, learn about the kinds of content that you're hoping to host and what that would look like. I don't have anyone that's launched yet to be able to show you. So I guess we should mention, so Cortex launched at ALA 2018. So we're quite proud that in 2 years we have 14 customers, and we'll have more on by the end of the year. And I think it really attests to, someone mentioned that they're familiar with the Adam Matthew databases, and I think Adam Matthew Digital has a great reputation for their databases, and we're building that for our technology solution as well.
Have you worked with artifacts as well, or is it all digital?
Yeah, so we are delving into, we are based out of the UK, so we use some other terms, but the GLAM sector, and I love what it's called. And so we are delving into that archives, museums, that private library space a bit more. So we have the Royal Agricultural Society in New South Wales. I think I said it right. And they might have some materials that they're hosting right now. They mostly have print. I can share that Adam Matthew Digital is using Cortex, and we have a need for, in the future, to be able to host 360 images, which then enables the ability to have objects. You could have a metadata only record and link out, say if you had an image of an object elsewhere that didn't neatly fit what we currently have. Like we don't currently host 360, it's on the timeline for us to be able to do so. We could always link out to that. So we're really interested in having those conversations. Part of our development is based on what our customers need. So if no one's quite asking for it, we're not going to build, we're going to build out for what people need today and try to work into what people need for tomorrow next. We also just signed, I'll throw out there that we also just signed Mitsubishi Motor Group based out of Australia and New Zealand, I believe. And so I'm excited to see if they're going to want to have some robust or 360 images of their vehicles, for example. So there's definitely ways that we might be trying to incorporate more objects and things other than just documents and AV materials.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
All right, well, with that, we're going to sign off here. And we have one more program session starting at 3:15. So everybody, make sure you take a break and come back and join us for our next session of programming. Choose what you'd like to watch at 3:15. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks. Have a great day.
You too.